And welcome back to the show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. I am rocking the Loyal Sock colors. He is rocking the Montoursville colors today. I think it looks Michigan from here, but I'll call them Montoursville colors.
You know, I end up buying a lot of stuff that is Michigan, and I just tell people it's Montoursville.
Montoursville, it works. We're going to talk about Bill Cosby. We're going to talk about the NCAA finally giving in for their athletes to make money. It is also Bobby Bonilla Day, and Mark knows a thing or two about music, so he's going to challenge me, and we're going to debate some stuff. But as always, the most important question, the reason everybody, the most people tune in at the beginning of the show, and I am convinced it is because they want to know how Mark is feeling.
Mark is not feeling as good as the people next door. I don't know. You may be able to hear it. It is like the midday dance party going on right over there. They are having a good time today. The rain has just isn't it weird how just the change of weather, like if you have a bunch of miserable days in a row and then the sun comes out and it just totally changes your mood. And after this heat wave, like you throw in this all day rain and people are thrilled. They are just thrilled. It's like, I have to stay inside. I'm not going to cook when I go get in my car because that first 30 seconds in your car is hot.
It's brutal. I was excited for the rain. I was one of those
people right over there are excited. Maybe I'm giving the rain the credit, but they're having more fun than everybody else.
We're going to start off today with Bill Cosby. And this, for you and I, this will be interesting because a lot of times when we go to talk about something, we've discussed it, or I know about how you feel about somebody, or I have no clue what your opinion is. If you even liked Bill Cosby before everything, I have no idea what your opinions are on Bill Cosby. So I'll start with that question. Did you grow up watching him? Did you enjoy his comedy? What's kind of your deal with Bill Cosby?
Oh, I loved him. I was the era of the Cosby Show. Even before that, I grew up with Fat Albert. And I remember when we learned, Bill Cosby does most of the voices for Dumb Donald and all that. So, yeah, it was Bill Cosby was when they call him America's dad, he really was. And I think that's part of the reason why America was hurt so badly to find out that he was such a monster.
Yeah, I agree. So, the basis of the story and where we're at now, because this has been going on for a while, he has been let go. So in vacating Bill Cosby's aggravated assault conviction on Wednesday, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court also overturned what had been considered a milestone win in the long, difficult battle for dozens of women who had accused the comedian of misconduct. 60 women had accused Cosby, who is now 83, of a variety of offenses going as far back as the 1960s. Real quick before you go again, Cosby has repeatedly denied these allegations. And now he has been set free.
Well, I don't know. The guy's guilty. I don't know how else we say it. I think about this from a psychological aspect. And, as we try to delve in, we've seen so many TV shows and movies of what could go on in the mind of someone who's obviously that demented. And number one of the things we talked about, I'm sure there are still defenders, of Bill and who claim that these women are after money and, all this stuff. And we had a discussion here yesterday while you weren't here, but we had a discussion, and it would not shock me if somewhere out there in this group, if there was one or two or three women who tried to climb on and try to collect. That's not out of the realm of possibility. But we'd also discussed how many more women are out there that are embarrassed to come forward, are ashamed to come forward. The number you just said, 60 have accused them. And I know there's more than 60 because there are people who won't come forward.
Yeah, well, that was always the discussion that I had with people was, and I don't know where the tipping point is for belief, but humans have always found strength in numbers, and the more likely that more and more people come out and say something, it turns from rumor to truth. And there is a tipping point somewhere in there. I'm not sure where it was, but the numbers were overwhelming at a certain point, where, as you said, he is guilty. There's no way that this amount of people got together. And we've talked about it before. Being an investigator, we just started watching The Mayor of Easttown, and just stay with me because this will all make sense. We just started watching The Mayor of Easttown on HBO, which is a detective series with Kate Winslet. And at one point, they have to interview a bunch of high school kids about something that happened like a week ago. And the answers are ridiculous because kids just don't remember what happened a week ago. Like that feels like forever ago. So there are details in this case that I have no doubt are incorrect, not because they want to be incorrect, but because how do you possibly, like, you just can't remember that far back. It doesn't mean he's not guilty, but it's gonna, like, as the longer he is free, the harder it is to convict him. And I think that's what's happening here. It's been so long and things have happened that you would think 40, 50 women would be enough, but it's just hard because it's just hard to get concrete evidence the further and further away you're removed from it.
Okay, so here's my question. It's July 1st. You're in a school building. Who the hell is making announcements? And what important announcements can be made on July 1st?
I don't know. And they're still going. This isn't a short announcement. It's a long announcement.
When you're talking, it gives the Charlie Brown aspect in the background because you can hear her making noise, but you can't understand what she's saying. So it's just lady, just stop. But the other part
Is this any better? Did that make it better or no?
Yeah, that is better.
Okay. Were you able to understand what I said?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. I could understand you. It was just kind of more funny than not funny. But the other aspect that I was thinking about Bill Cosby, well, and you've seen all the online where it says we can't free Britney, but we can free Bill Cosby. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yes.
But one of the thoughts, again, going into the demented mind of a guy like this, I'm sure on his through his fame and his travels and that there were consensual partners. So my question is, like, just how sick is this guy? Did he drug them all? Or did he only drug the ones who were uncooperative?
And again, this is all speculation. From what I have read and following the case, this is like he didn't take chances. Like, to me, he had a system and this is what he did. So I would imagine there were very few, if none, occasions where he did not drug them because I just think it worked and he consistently did it. All speculation, but that's what I have picked up from everything that I've read.
Fascinating is not the right word, but Criminal Minds, when these shows like this, that what's going on in their heads, and I've always been, I've looked at the psychology of the wives because Bill Cosby's wife has stood by him, Jerry Sandusky's wife has stood by him, and as we all sit back and say, how do you stand by it? Put yourself in their shoes, who have been with these men and they have stood by their man their entire lives, and this is now internal for them. If they came out and said, my husband did this to these little boys or my husband did this to these women, then what does that say about me? And not that they are accomplices like what Epstein's, like that girl that helped Epstein recruit the girls and was an active part of it. Sure. But somewhere they're like, I am that much of a fool. I am that gullible. I supported this monster. So for those people, like, I think they're standing by their man and denying it is just for their own mental self-preservation.
I agree with that almost 100%. Like that, like you're hitting the nail on the head from that aspect. The other part of it too is like it goes along with that idea of just like longevity and how long, like they've just been with them for so long, and it's hard to come to grips, like 20, 30, 40 years. It's just hard to come to grips with the fact of, like, I don't want to say never getting caught, because I'm sure there were like squeaky, like there were loose ends and there were things that maybe got out or around in like tighter circles, but it is like you just kind of get away with it for 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years. I do wonder, like for Bill Cosby and some of these people, like you just get to a point where you're just never going to get caught. Like you just get to the point where you just assume you're always going to do it and nothing's ever going to change.
Well, it's unfortunate after the Me Too movement, and we saw what happened with the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, and the guy with Fox News that they made the Bombshell movie about. Did you see Bombshell?
Yes, I did.
Good movie.
Yes.
And then to see something like this, because this has to be discouraging for women, because just imagine the courage that it takes to come out, especially like the first couple, through the door. And then to see this and say, so to go through all that and the guy gets released anyway on a technicality that I don't even know. I read somewhere that he had made a deal with a previous prosecutor. And because he'd made that deal, that the conviction couldn't stand. I don't really know why he's out, but just I can only imagine how many women right now around the country are thinking that who have been violated or assaulted in some way, who are pondering, and then they see something like this and they're like, what's the use?
No, yes. There's a couple, because you touched on some of the stuff there and some things, because I don't know how much you've read about it. Like I've been diving into it more and more. And even before I knew he was going to be released again, this is the part of it that, and not to get like too much like in criminal minds or anything like that, but what a lot of people don't realize about what Bill Cosby did is a lot of times he didn't slip them in their drink. Like a lot of people think that like when they weren't looking, he'd drop it in the drink. It's not a majority, but a lot of people that testified or basically came forward have said that like they ended up taking the drugs almost willingly, because Bill Cosby basically implied like they were a muscle relaxer. They would help you relax, not knowing that they were like knockout drugs. And so like to me, there's a vindictiveness to that is like, I know it sounds weird to compare evils, but there is something just extra sinister about that. Just the idea of like even if I don't know how to go into it, but there's just another level there where they trust you when you do that. Like, right, that there's a level of trust when you hand them those pills and you are completely taking advantage. Like there is no right, like accidental wrong drink, wrong cup, nothing. Like it is 100%, they trust you and you are just taking advantage of it. And that level of sinister, that's the part that is like disturbing. It's all disturbing, but that's the part that most people don't realize about the Cosby stuff.
See, and I just assumed that he was slipping it in their drinks, and I'll bet a lot of other people assume that too.
And so I'm sure he did. Like, I'm sure there are instances where he did, but there are numerous instances where that was not the case at all. It was like a friend to friend or peer to peer. Here's some pills, relax. It's very, very sinister. Some awful stuff.
I don't know that. I guess I don't want to say there's any good things about it, but he is 83 and he's not going to be alive much longer anyway. So that's kind of the the social outcry and the uprising, and he's going to have to live as a hermit essentially for the rest of his life. So
you would think. You would think. Let's jump to the wheel real quick, and then we'll double back, and we'll hit Bobby Bonilla Day and NCAA athletes to make money. Thank you to Weis Markets. Be sure to go there for all your grocery needs. It's Thursday. Mark's been there about a dozen times.
I've
this
not
week
been there
already.
yet today, but I was there yesterday afternoon.
Okay, so he'll be back. We also had Moon and Raven, Public House. We also have Eaton on Catering, and we have the Break Room in Williamsport. Be sure to go there and blow off some steam at some point this summer. And how can people win?
Go to Facebook. Well, you're on Facebook.
Yes.
Go to the search bar, type in Midday Show, and hit like or join or whichever one. It's either like or join, and then you're in, and then you're in, and it'll spit you out. You'll get a T-shirt. Tomorrow we will have a bonus T-shirt because Lisa's going to get a T-shirt tomorrow, even if she's probably not going to win, because what are the odds? But we're gonna give her a T-shirt because she's been a big fan. It's her birthday. So yes. Tomorrow we'll give 2 T-shirts. Today we're giving 1. Or maybe Lisa's name comes up today. I might have stolen the thunder.
Today's random Facebook winner is Renee McNutt.
There we go.
Renee McNutt. Let's do it. Let's spin the wheel.
All right, here we go. I spin it more gently now because I don't want to break things. Oh, she just missed 100.
Oh, just 100.
Off. Right, if I had spun it a little even more gently, because I used to crank it, and then the one day, I don't know if you were watching when everything went all haywire.
I was watching, yes.
You were watching as I had to catch it, and it was. Were you here that day, Or were you? Yeah, you were here. Or were you at the beach? No, you were at the
Yeah, I
beach.
think I was at the beach. I keep waiting. I keep thinking on Tuesdays and Thursdays, eventually you're just going to have Dan come and like on his knees,
Just
hold it down while you spin it. That's
Dan
what
doesn't listen. They don't make interns like they used to.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's
All
double
right,
back.
so congratulations to Renee. You win a T-shirt. I have one over there. I could demonstrate. I could show it, but it's over there.
Let's double back. NCAA athletes can officially make money. Here's how they're doing it though. So it's not what most people think it's going to be. The NCAA itself is not actually going to pay their athletes. However, college athletes are going to be able to profit off of things like their name, their image, and it's basically a huge shift in the way it used to be. They used to basically sign their life away if you were a college athlete.
Correct.
Once you signed on the dotted line, you could not make money through sponsorships. You couldn't make money online. You couldn't sell your jerseys. You couldn't autograph stuff and sell it. Like, they basically locked up your idea of making money and threw away the key. So now the NCAA is shifting. You can now do sponsorships. You can now make money on social media. So even though it's not necessarily like a salary or money coming out of the NCAA's pocket per se, athletes are going to be able to go and make money off of their name. I think this is weird because it's due and it's time to happen. Like, this needed to happen. The weird part about this is I feel like it's not costing the NCAA anything. Like, I don't feel like the NCAA, the bottom line is going to shift that much. And the second part that I want to hear you talk about is, I don't know how many athletes this actually benefits. I think it benefits maybe like 3%, 4%, 3 or 4% are going to become millionaires. Like, they're like millionaires with a capital mill. But the majority of college athletes who have to do all the same thing that these other athletes do, they're not really getting anything out of this.
What I think, and I agree 100%, what I think where this will go, and I'm not going to say that college athletes are going to unionize, but you take this is what they do in Major League Baseball. I know this, and I'm sure it's the other sports are the same. As part of being in the players union, like, they get money off of their name and likeness with all the baseball cards and all that stuff. And that money goes to fund the players union and to have the funds in case they go on strike and all that stuff. So it's kind of like a deal. But I am almost positive, don't quote me on this, but Mike Trout's cut of baseball card money with Topps and with Fleer and what all is the same as the backup catcher for Detroit. Like, it is, we're in the union and we're all in this together. And Mike Trout, when he signs his contract for $400 million, that's his. And all his personal endorsements is his. But what we do together as a union with baseball cards and with this and with that, we are all in it together and we're a group. So take a place like Penn State football. If Penn State football signs a Nike contract for, say, $1 million a year, then that $1 million, this is my speculation, what I think is going to happen down the road. That $1 million is going to get divided up amongst the 110 players on the football team or whatever. So each kid will get this much money from Nike or from, because you look at it, especially football, basketball, these high profile TV sports, all the big schools have sneaker deals. And obviously they're all not making $1 million, you know. Maybe Penn State makes this much, and maybe Temple makes this much, and Pitt makes it, or whatever the case may be. But, you know, you take some of these deals are huge, and especially in basketball where we've got fewer kids on the roster, then it could matter.
See, I think that's a very optimistic approach. I think it's a very socialist approach. Is that fair to say? Because this is what I think is going to happen. And you use Penn State as an example. So I'm just going to use Penn State, but I have no,
Right.
Penn State football signs $1 million contract with Nike. Penn State football is not giving up that check. Not without a fight. And neither is the university. Now, they will make the argument that they are going to dump it into the program, which then benefits the players. So they'll buy hot tubs and they'll buy new locker rooms and they'll get new clothes but they're not going to give up the money without a fight. I think, and this is where the problem occurs. This is my opinion. I'm in the Penn State football locker room. I am the quarterback. If I'm actually even better, let's say you're Saquon Barkley. Let's say you're Saquon Barkley from a couple of years ago. Saquon Barkley is going to become a millionaire overnight if this would have happened when he was at Penn State. Overnight. Endorsement deals, social media accounts, stuff like literally overnight millionaire. It's done. I am the left corner for Penn State. Nothing changed. The only thing I saw was the teammate in my locker room become a millionaire overnight. Well, I'm putting in the same effort for the same team for the same wins. There's a lot of scenarios where this goes poorly, really bad.
You make good points, but now let's do this. We should be on ESPN talking about this because we're going to do this better than the talking heads on there. So if you're a school and you are any school, and we'll stick with Penn State just because they're local. So you're Penn State. How do you make money in football? If you win, how do you win in football? You get the best players. So you take your $1 million Nike deal and you tell the university, and the university has to know, we're going to give up $1 million to the players and we're going to make it all back when we win more. So now the left corner, who you're right, has very little marketability, or the right guard, or all these role players in a sport of superstars, but you can't win without the depth. Sure. Now all of a sudden these guys show up and they're like, listen, Saquon's going to make $1 million.
Yeah.
You're going to make $45,000 because everybody on our roster gets a check for $45,000 that comes from Nike or Adidas or Reebok or Under Armour, whoever it is. So now all of a sudden you're a high school kid, and you're right. There will be schools that say we're not doing it. Imagine the first school that says, you come here, you get a cut, and here's our contract. We have a 4-year deal with Under Armour. They're paying us this much, you get this much, and everybody knows it. That's a good recruiting leverage.
It's a fantastic recruiting tool. You're exactly right. I guess the devil's advocate, or the part that you and I would have to figure out is because if you're a school, it's $1 million in your pocket, and there is no guarantee that you're going to win by putting that money onto the field. And there will be universities that are stubborn because they will say, well, we've been winning without putting $1 million on them.
Oh yeah.
And
not old, yep. Not stubborn, just old and stupid.
Yes. And they will say, like, well, that $1 million doesn't need to go on the field. We'll put it elsewhere. We'll do other things. The other part of this too, and what's going to be interesting, and we'll use this, I mean, Saquon Barkley is not a fair example of this because from all accounts, he's a fantastic person. But there will be teams where for the first time ever, the starting quarterback, the starting point guard, are making just as much, if not more, than the head coach on the college team. And that is going to be a fascinating subplot to this entire thing. Because if you're Roy Williams, if you're Coach K, if you're Bobby Knight, all these coaches that had this control over the program and all these other things, it's really easy to have control over the program when you're making $3-4 million and your point guard's not making anything, and they rely on you for your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, when all of a sudden the starting point guard at Duke is getting $2 million in spot, how much money would Zion Williamson had make his freshman year at Duke?
$100.
Yeah, okay. Zion would have been. I bet you Zion would have made $5 to $10 million as a freshman at Duke. So now all of a sudden he's making more than Coach K. It changes all the dynamics. Everything. Absolutely.
And I've said this all along because I played college sports. You played college sports. You played a higher level than I did. But I've said what makes high school sports doable is the kids are doing it for the love of the game, and essentially the coaches are too. The coaches get a little bit of money, but they all kind of realize that everyone has a life outside of this. Sure. And you've seen, I know you've been there, coaches miss practices or they're late for buses because they just have real world stuff they have to go on, and this is high school. In the pros, everybody's doing it for a living. And even though the coaches aren't making as much as the players and the assistant coaches aren't, they're still making a good living, and they're doing it for their career, and they want to do well because they want to expand their career. In college, there's always been that dichotomy. You've got kids that are doing it for the love of the game, and you've got coaches who are doing it for millions and millions of dollars and trying to make a career. And now they've balanced that, and it's going to make coaching a lot harder a lot harder.
It's going to make it impossible in some places.
Places.
Last thing before we end this, I don't know if you saw, like 3 to 4 months ago, there was a handful of universities that hired basically like digital marketing coaches for their Division I programs. So they were bringing in people, and their only job is to teach kids how to build their following, find them sponsorships for their following, and basically complete the deal for them, like almost like an agent for the team. Today, every team in Division I athletics just posted that job. If you go online and you go through the universities and look, it is unbelievable. Like there's going to be 300 plus hires for online, like digital employees on Division I basketball teams, Division I football teams all across the country. It is the hottest job in college sports.
It's going to be like strength and conditioning. Like there's going to be one for men's basketball. There's going to be one for women's basketball. Yes. There's going to be one for wrestling. Yes.
Because there's a couple of videos from a couple of months ago of schools bragging that they were like one of the first 5, one of the first 10 to have these guys already in place. They've already been working on this for months with their teams, prepping their kids, getting them ready.
We should also say, because we have such a following in Mississippi, congratulations to Mississippi State on winning the College World Series. And how about this for a stat?
It's their first ever.
The first national championship their school has ever won. And you're a Lock Haven alum. Like Lock Haven has won national championships in sport. So I know it's Division II as compared to, but like for a school as prestigious as Mississippi State, like Rafael Palmeiro went to Mississippi State, Will Clark went to Mississippi. Yeah. Like this is not it's an SEC program. And I mean, we're talking women's lacrosse. We're talking field hockey. We're talking swimming and diving, golf. Track and field, they've never won in anything.
There's 2 schools left, right? There's 2 schools left. I can't remember what they are. There are 2 Division I programs left that have never won. I could be wrong. I think Kansas State is one of them.
Okay.
I think it's Kansas State and it's somebody else. 2 Division I programs never won a national championship. Pretty insane.
The Wildcats.
Yes. Bobby Bonilla Day. Do you want me to explain it, or would you
I'll just tell him real quick. Bobby Bonilla was a really good Major League Baseball player. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he's in the Hall of really good. When he was with the Mets, he signed a contract. And there was a time in Major League Baseball when the money was going crazy. Well, in all sports, it's, and they were deferring money. And that was part of the negotiations. Like, we'll pay you this much and we'll defer. When, like, 2001, he was with the Mets. And they were buying out his contract, and they owed him like $6 million, 5.9, something like that. And they came up with this deal that when you look at it now and you're like, what a terrible deal. But they were going to pay him like $1.2 million a year for 25 years. But they had 2 caveats. They were going to wait 10 years before they started paying anything. They weren't going to make a payment until 2011. Say 10 years off. And I guess maybe that was it. But the reason that the Mets did that, I thought there's 2 caveats, but so you're like, well, why would they do this? Why would they push it off? Well, because they were in the Bernie Madoff thing, and they thought they had a guaranteed 10% return, because part of the negotiation was a 8% increase or some stuff like that. So they ran the numbers, and they're like, we're going to make money, even though we've turned this $6 million debt into a $28 million debt or something like that, because we can delay it, because we can push it off down the road, and because we're making this much money with Bernie Madoff, we're going to end up making out like bandits. All of a sudden, the Bernie Madoff thing went haywire, but every July 1st, Bobby Bonilla, who has not played for the New York Mets now in 20 years, gets $1.19 something million. So I think the Mets are having a celebration, like the new owners. It's Bobby Bonilla Day all over, and he's going to get this check through 2030. He'll be 70 some years old, getting $1 million plus from the Mets.
Well, I think it's clever of them to like jump in on the gag. Because correct me if I'm wrong, there was a long time where the Mets were not in on the joke. They were being made fun of.
Well, so it's a new owner. And the new owner's like, listen, I didn't. And on my Facebook feed, and I have a lot of sports friends and whatever, I saw it 3 times this morning before I probably left my house. Like, hey, it's Bobby Bonilla Day. It's Bobby. So like, yeah, it's like if you're the new owner, you're like, I didn't do this, but hey, let's make a party out of it. And they'll probably have Bobby come throughout the first pitch. Like, why not?
Do you know how long it goes until?
I think it's 2035.
2035. It doesn't end until then. There's still 14 years of Bobby Bonilla Day.
And now Bonilla is a smart guy. Bonilla is not a dumb guy. Yeah. And did I ever tell you my Bobby Bonilla story with my nephew who's now 20, whatever, he's in college, and so he's like 3 years old. And Bonilla, there's a picture with the Mets, and the deal was with the Mets, but Bonilla was an Oriole for a while and was a teammate of Mike's for a while. And so my nephew is like 3 years old, and my brother says to him, "Hey, tell Uncle Mark what you're going to be for Halloween." And my 3-year-old looks up at me and goes, "Bobby the Better." And I was like, "Come again?" He's like, "Bobby the Better." And I was like, I looked at my brother. I was like, "He's going to dress up as Bobby Bonilla for?" He goes, "No, it's Bob the Tomato." I was like, oh, for the life of me, I'm sitting there thinking, why is my nephew dressing up like Bobby Bonilla for Halloween? Right. But it was Bob the Tomato. But when you're 3, Bonilla and tomato sound a lot the same.
Yeah, close enough. Close enough. It's a really neat story. All right. You'll enjoy this. Mark knows music.
That is great.
Mark had, you know what? I'm kind of upset because it ends up looking like a pipe. It's supposed to be a saxophone.
Oh, I thought it was a pipe.
They're perfect.
I thought it was just like great. Me being like snobby and intelligent.
I didn't think of that, but I like it even more now. That's perfect. Mark knows music. I just fell into that. I didn't even mean to do that. It's supposed to be a saxophone. Anyway, Mark knows music. He had some facts for me, some interesting things. And he said, "Do you want to talk about them?" I said, "Sure," because usually when you bring me music facts, they're pretty good.
All right. Well, this is a trivia question on this day in history. Somewhat. Now, this is UK. It's the UK charts, but it's still people you know. Someone hit number 1 in 2000 or 2001 or something like that with a song, and became the third artist, or one of 3 artists, to have a number 1 song in the UK in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Wow. And I tell this story because if you had to like just guess off the top of your head, if I gave you 5 guesses, you're going to get 2 of them. So, number 1 song in the UK in the 80s, the 90s, and 2000s. Who were the huge pop stars in the 80s, the 90s, and 2000s?
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson's what?
See, this is the 80s. The 80s part is throwing me off because I could do the 90s, 2000s, 80s kind of. Prince?
No, but you're in the ballpark. Like that huge.
That huge. Prince, Michael Jackson. Give me the second one.
Madonna.
Okay. Madonna makes sense. And then you're saying I won't get the third one.
I could give you 1,400 guesses, and you would not get the third one without Google. Without the help of Google.
So it's not Billy Joel is what you're telling me.
It is not. It is Kylie Minogue.
Oh, you're right. I would not have guessed that. So 80s, 90s, 2000s, Kylie Minogue. But her hit must have been like 80 because she's not that old.
She wasn't. No, she probably spaced.
So it must have been like 89 and then into the
2000 or something like that.
Okay. That's a good one.
So while I was reading these, there was that was in the UK charts. Okay. In the US Hot 100, there are 4 acts who had a top 100 hit in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and the 2010s. Now, they preface this slightly. They did not count Whitney Houston because Whitney Houston, after her death, she had previous songs that regurgitated back. Okay. And they didn't count Bon Jovi because something happened in the world, and for whatever reason, Living on a Prayer regurgitated itself back in the top 100 in 2013.
That's interesting. Why don't they count the regurgitating?
Because it wasn't. They didn't even re-release it. It wasn't a re-recording. It just kind of. But these were new songs from new artists over 4 decades. So again, when we go to the hit makers, Michael Jackson was one of them.
Okay.
Now, Michael Jackson, I don't know when he passed away. Maybe it was a song that had been unreleased or something. But there was Michael Jackson. There was Madonna. There was U2, which are all these, like when you're
Sure.
thinking of the Mount Rushmores of these, and the fourth one.
Is there any chance I could guess the fourth one? Or
Yeah,
is it like
yes, you know this, but when I tell you, you're going to be like, what? Like, which one doesn't belong? But
is it a band or is it solo?
Solo.
Billy Joel.
No.
Okay, what is it?
And I just, as people are pondering, because I don't want to take the luster away, and I'm sure people are Googling because they gave up too quickly. But think of an artist who just seems to have like timeless longevity that could have a hit tomorrow. If the
through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s.
Yep. And we'll probably have another one just the way this person
world works. So there's a longevity to them. I'm trying to think who it would be. Who's the guy who does American Idol?
No.
Lionel Richie. No,
it's not
him.
Who
is it?
Weird Al.
It makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense.
And
he'll have another one.
I don't obviously like nothing against Weird Al. What he does, I think he's amazing for what he does.
Brilliant.
But you are correct. He does not belong with those names and what he does. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Do you know he's like a architect, is like his degree or whatever.
Really?
And somewhere along the line, I guess he tells, there's this interview, because he's a really bright guy.
Yeah.
And like his parents are like, you need to take a music lesson when he was in like 6th grade. They're like, your choices are either the piano or the accordion. And he's like, I'm playing the accordion. And they're like, why? He's like, because who wants to play the piano? I'm playing the. So he can play the accordion. But yes, Weird Al has had hits. Was the first one Eat It after Michael Jackson?
Eat It was big. He did the Gangster's Paradise. I forget what his version was called though.
It was
he did Amish Paradise.
But that was in the 90s, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because they went through and they talked about the songs which he had and which he hit. One of his last ones was the guy
he remade
Blurred Lines. What was that? Who was Thicke?
I forget Robin Thicke. So he redid Blurred Lines. He also redid Riding Dirty, which that one like caught traction, but I can't remember what the name of the Riding Dirty one was. So that's a great. I mean, Weird Al. I haven't heard Weird Al in a long time. That's a great one.
I just love when you put those people together. When you put like Michael Jackson, Madonna, U2, and Weird Al.
And Weird Al. That's they should get together.
They should tour. Well, Michael Jackson.
Can you imagine? In all jokes aside, would anybody be disappoined if Weird Al was the opener for a U2 concert? Like, is anybody upset? Like, no. Like again, it's all a joke, but at the same time, like people are happy when they hear his music. Yes. He's entertaining. Yes. Like, there's no situation where I feel like people would be disappointed Weird Al showed up.
Did you ever hear, if you hear interviews with him, like he talks to the band, when he did Smells Like Teen Spirit, you remember that one, right? Where he was just like, brother. And he says when he called the band and when he talked to I guess it was Cobain was the one that he talked to first, and they were like all jacked, and they're like, oh, well, what are you gonna make fun of it? And he's just like, I'm gonna make fun of the fact that no one can understand what you're saying. And he's like, that was a really, because with all the other ones, like when you go bad to fat and beat it to eat it and like a virgin to like a surgeon and all that, he's like, everyone was cool about it. And he's like, but when I'm telling the guy, I'm just going to make fun of the fact that we don't know what you're saying. And he's like, they were like, oh, that's cool. Whatever. And he's like, they were great with it. So I think Coolio didn't like Amish Paradise.
He wasn't thrilled about it.
Yeah, there's one that was mad.
To him, the song had more meaning. It wasn't meant to be made fun of. And like a part of me gets that. Like a part of me, like if you invested into your music and you feel like there's a deeper meaning to it, sure. But Yeah, that's good.
Well, none of us feel like we're meant to be made fun of. But those of us who can laugh at ourselves being made fun of are better adjusted.
Makes a lot better. All right, real quick, let's rapid fire through some comments. Lisa said Bruce Springsteen. Good guess. I didn't think of Bruce Springsteen. I don't think he could have made like the 2000s or 2010s. What would have been like a Bruce Springsteen song in the 2000s?
Well, he had The Rising was after the 9/11.
Okay.
And that might have hit.
Okay.
His latest album wasn't in the 20 teens. It was in his latest album's great, but I don't know if it had anything to hit the top 100.
Okay.
But yeah, Springsteen's a good guess.
Joe helped us out with some NCAA stuff. Virginia Tech and Kansas State are the only two Power 5 schools to have never won a team sport national championship.
Now that's interesting because I was just talking about this the other night. Virginia Tech had a wrestler, and I'm trying to think. I remember because he was black, and he was like an 8 seed.
Okay.
And he won. And I'm going to say this was within the last 5 years because I remember talking to one of the Yonkin brothers at Matoursville, who are my kind of, when I need to know wrestling stuff, I go to him. And I was like, how does an 8 seed, I think he was an 8-seeded freshman, and how does he come through and win a national championship? And they said because he'd been hurt. And I don't know if he was hurt in high school or college, and Virginia Tech is not a national, there's Penn State, there's Iowa,
Sure.
There's Oklahoma, there's national. And there had been an injury, so they're like, this kid kind of snuck under the radar, and then he shows up, wins a national title as a freshman. So they did have, but I know it's team sport. But Virginia Tech has had at least one individual national champion because I watched the kid win.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Real quick, my topic made the live. Congratulations. If you ever want us to talk about something, feel free to comment. We will eventually get to the comments. And also feel free to message us. We're happy. I have family members. I have friends who are constantly sending me stuff saying you should talk about this, you should talk about that. So feel free to give us suggestions. Somebody also said, give Reggie Bush his Heisman back. I don't know if you have any opinions on that as well. Going along with that, Joe brought up one other thing. Where does getting a cut stop and taking a bribe start?
That's fascinating.
That's interesting topic. As this moves along, I bet you I could see 2, 3, 4 months from now us talking about that because there's a story about somebody doing something. I could see us talking about that in the future.
A couple months ago when we talked about Rocket Mortgage is sponsoring Michigan State basketball, there's going to be places where people are going to sell sponsorships, and Rocket Mortgage, and we're just using that as an example. Sure. But every kid that signs on to play at Michigan State knows that they are going to get $100,000 to play at Michigan State because Rocket Mortgage is going to sponsor that. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting.
Really interesting. All right, that was good. Anything else for the people?
Too bad when you were at Lock Haven playing basketball that Rocket Mortgage didn't sponsor the Bald Eagle.
Lock Haven. I'll tell you, too bad, because I'm sure there were some sub shops that I went to every day that really would have liked a little cutout of me out in front holding my foot-long sub. So, yeah, I really missed the boat on that one.
Just think of how much you would have weighed in college if you would have had $100,000 in your bank account because you wouldn't have eaten healthier.
Weight would not have been the issue.
No?
Weight would not have been the issue.
What do you think?
Joe Garrison hit the nail on the head. Weight would not have been the issue. That's all. I'll leave it at that.
What if you would have made $100,000 a year? And again, because this is obviously not going to go to all levels. At Lock Haven, the kids may make $100 a year because who knows. But if you would have made $100,000 a year in college playing basketball, what do you think the odds are that you would have completed your degree?
I truly believe, for me, it's a different situation. I definitely would have completed my degree because it was the only way for me to continue playing basketball. I wasn't going to go pro. So the only way for me was to keep passing classes, stay eligible. And at that point I would have graduated. So okay. I get what there are players, don't get me wrong. Your point is well taken. There are players that would not have finished. I was fortunate. I think I would have, I don't think I would have spent all the money. I think I was in a fortunate enough situation that most of it probably would have been put away.
Well, and as you mentioned, we talk about guys and where they went to college, and we talk about college. And I have a topic for tomorrow, by the way. remind me my topic for tomorrow. But when we go through with baseball and we talk about guys, because a lot of baseball guys go right out of the draft, but then there's a lot of famous guys. Like I mentioned, Palmeiro went to Mississippi State. Will Clark went to Mississippi State. And, Barry Bonds went to Arizona State. And there's lots of famous, baseball players who went to college. And I remember talking to Mike once about, all these college graduates. And he's like, no, they're not many college graduates in Major League Baseball. And because I said, well, this guy went here. And he's like, he never graduated. And this guy went here and he never graduated. And I said, well, how many are? He said, I think there's like 25 in the big leagues right now. And this was a point where he was with the Yankees. I said, so you're the only college graduate on the Yankees right now. And at the time, he's like, no, John Flaherty graduated from George Washington. So right now there's 2 of us. But yeah, he goes, there's lots of times that I was the only college graduate on my team, even though all these guys went to college. So there is kind of this misnomer that we see. And one of the dirty little secrets about NCAA sports is, as you talked about, because you're not an idiot and you would have worked to keep playing, you would have worked to towards your degree. To be eligible to play college sports, you just have to pass enough classes, but you do not have to pass classes on track to any degree. So you could have taken elementary ed 101. You could finish your 4 years with 126 credits, but be no real closer to getting a degree than I am, and still be eligible to play the whole time. So that is one of the dirty little secrets. Just because someone's there and they're eligible and they're passing classes, at the end of their time, they don't get a piece of paper.
Yeah, no, it's very, very true. All right. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to Weis Markets for being our title sponsor. Be sure to go there for all your grocery needs. NorthcentralPa.com. Be sure to go there for all your local news. I just keep telling people where to go for what they need. I mean, that's my life now.
You're very bossy.
That's my life now. My life now. I just tell people, if you need groceries, go to Weis Markets. If you need news, go to NorthcentralPa.com. And if you need a good laugh, join the Midday Show tomorrow, same time. We will be here.
Here's what I don't like. Your friends and family are giving you comments of what we should talk about. My friends are telling me I should hang out with you because you're a pure soul and you're from the Bloss.
Yeah, you never sent that to me. I need proof of that. I still don't know
I will
if
send
that's
it.
a real
I will send it. I did not make that up.
All right. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will see you tomorrow.